What's a good copper basin sled?
The shorter races, you have smaller sleds. They don't have to carry the large weight capacities that an Iditarod sled would have to carry. And I learned that firsthand the first year I ran Iditarod. Actually, this sled right here behind me, although you probably can't see how long it is or wide or anything like this, it's really light. It only weighs like 42 pounds max with nothing in it. Versus a Iditarod sled, which weighs about 10 pounds more because it's longer and it's wider to give me more stability. The first year I ran this one, it's narrow, it's only 20 inches wide, and I had this piled up with stuff inside the sled. So whenever I get to a place, it was a lot more top heavy than my other sled, so I turned over a lot. I think for every person that question, maneuverability or this, that, and the other, it's a personal preference in that some people like to have maneuverable sleds, and Prairie Belt here, they do have maneuverable sleds in that they can turn a little bit and kind of go like this. Other sleds, even like Allie, hers doesn't turn that much, but it's really strong. So she really likes hers. I really like mine. They're just smaller, lighter, and the reason being, you don't have any weight in the sled except your mandatory gear, which I'm sure we'll hit on here shortly. And that's basically it. Whereas Iditarod, we have wind jackets, we have everything possibly that can go wrong, or weather conditions that might happen, we'll have in that sled to protect us and protect the dogs. Whereas in these mid-distance races, within 4 or 5 hours, we're at a checkpoint or we're somewhere we can get something. So that's the huge difference in these mid-distance races and Iditarod. We can get somewhere really quick.
What is the mandatory gear?
The mandatory gear in the 300-mile race is you have to have 2 sets of booties for every dog. You have to have adequate food for every dog to get you even between, in case something happened, you had to stop between these checkpoints, you could give the dog a feeding. And that also includes heat, so you can make water to feed your dogs. You have to have an axe that is so long and it weighs so much, and you have to have a 40 below sleeping bag or a sleeping bag that weighs over 5 pounds. You have to have a cooker that holds, I believe it's 3 gallons of water. And you have to have a pair of snowshoes. Those are your mandatory gear that you have to have with you at all times, and enough food for yourself also.
That's for you. That's 2 Snickers bars and a.
That's 2 peanuts.
So what will you carry besides the mandatory gear?
That's about it.
That's about it.
That's about it.
Keep it as light as possible.
Light as possible, however, I will have a large thermos that'll have a lot of water in it, because I do run a lot and I do perspire a lot, so I need to replace that water, so hopefully won't get too many cramps. I know I'm going to get them. So.
Is there a difference in the gear you wear for this kind of a race?
As far as gear, there's not a whole lot of difference as far as my personal gear. Northern Outfitters has got it's great to keep you warm, their clothing. So even though it could get windy, it could get cold, I have wind jackets that Northern Outfitters gives us that I can throw on, and I don't have to change. Back in the day, I had to have on these 300-mile races, I had to have a change of clothes at every checkpoint because it'd be soaking wet. And nowadays I don't, because of them and their gear. So that's worked out really well.